All right, good evening, everybody, once again, and welcome to the Grand Blanc branch of the Genesee District Library and to tonight's event. First of all, I'm Trevor Wynn. I'm the Business Center Librarian here at the branch. I'm glad you're all here. I just want to first very briefly touch on the Business Center itself. If you've not visited the branch before, you're getting coffee and food, and it's just a little bit further down the hall, and it's on the left. And we have all kinds of really good information for you. It's a wide range. It can be whether you're looking to invest, if you're going on a job interview, you're trying to also write your resume, if you're looking for company information, if you're looking to start a business, if you want some free business counseling. We do all that stuff. And if I don't do it, I can probably give you a name of someone that does. And so now I have to read something. I think I have it here. Here we go. This seminar is made possible by a grant from the FINRA Investor Education Foundation through Smart Investing at Your Library, which is a partnership with the American Library Association. Special assistance provided by the Attorney General Bill Schuette's Senior Brigade Program. And now for our guest, Liz Weston. She's the most read personal finance columnist on the internet, according to Nielsen. She's an award-winning, nationally syndicated personal finance columnist who can make the most complex money topics understandable to the average reader. The New York Times called her latest book, The 10 Commandments of Money, Survive and Thrive in the New Economy, a wonderful basic personal finance book. Throughout, the book's tone is supportive of people struggling to understand these topics and trying to make ends meet. Her first book, Your Credit Score, which the library has multiple copies, is a national bestseller. Its fourth edition was published in late 2011. Her columns run twice a week on MSN Money, while her question and answer column, Money Talk, appear in newspapers throughout the country. Please join me in welcoming now Liz Weston.
Where's Trent? Trent Smiley's with the library, the district, and he's been ferrying me around. And we were talking this afternoon about how excited we were that you guys were going to be here. That so many of you decided to show up on a Friday night to listen to a talk about money. And that is truly extraordinary. So thank you for coming. One of the things I know about money from writing about it for 20 years, from going through the CFP planning program, from talking to experts all over the country, is that nobody is born good with money. Nobody is born knowledgeable about money. The only way we learn about money is being willing to ask questions. And I'm lucky enough, because of my background, because I've been a journalist for so long, I can call up some of the best minds in personal finance and get them to answer my questions. So at least I know when I'm answering your questions, I'm giving you good advice, giving you the best advice we can find in the country. But it's really hard for most people to find that information. And a lot of times we just kind of feel ashamed that we don't know more. And we feel embarrassed about asking, and most people think they should be better off than they actually are. If they just knew a little bit more about money, they would be doing better. And actually that is true. So now's the time to come and listen, and I'm going to be bombing through about 45 minutes worth of material. So if you hold your questions, that would be awesome, and then I will answer them at the end. Anything you think about, anything you've wondered about money, I would be delighted to help you with. So anyways, I've been a journalist for many decades now, and one of the things about journalists is most of them are very good with money. So a lot of times people will pull me aside at a party or at work or whatever and ask, okay, I need a financial planner. Can you recommend somebody? And I have a couple names I can give them and some phone numbers. Every time, as soon as I did that, they would start backpedaling. They would start saying, she's going to think I have too much credit card debt, or I really haven't saved that much for retirement. I think he's going to be, really harsh about that. And I would just sort of pat them on the head. Oh, isn't that sweet? And go make the appointment. Okay. In the course of having a daughter, starting a business, writing some books. My own portfolio got a little ragged. My investments weren't being tended to. It was like this overgrown, weedy garden. So I thought, you know what, I should hire a financial planner myself. And made the appointment, and the first thing I thought was, she's gonna laugh at me. She's gonna laugh at my investments and how shoddy I've let things go. Maybe I don't have enough money in an emergency fund. So all those doubts, just came flooded in. And it made me want to put off the appointment. But I went, and she did laugh at me. She pointed at, some of the things I'd done. It's like, really? You're supposed to be an expert about this. Like, no, I know, I got busy. So the good thing is I was able to find someone to turn to. I want to help you find someone to turn to, either in your community or somewhere else that you can get the information you want. I want to talk to you a little bit about good sources of information and bad sources of information. But most of all, what I want to talk about is how to achieve some balance with our money. Because not knowing what to do makes us anxious. Debt makes us anxious. Retirement makes us anxious. There's a lot of tension building up here. And you need all the help you can get to get through this period and get to the point where you have a life that has some balance. So that's what it's going to be about tonight, is achieving some balance with your money. Yeah, that's me. One of the other things I wanted to mention is I have, in addition to those other books, I have a new ebook called There Are No Dumb Questions About Money. And it's a collection of Q&As, and there is a coupon on my Facebook page I'll talk a little bit about later that can get you 40% off. So never pay retail, tip number one. One of the things that bothers me about a lot of financial advice I hear in the media, on TV, in the radio, it's very shaming. It's, oh, why did you do that? You're so stupid. You couldn't afford that. You should have done better. Why do you have that debt? Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. That's kind of been the tone for a couple decades of advice. And what bothers me about that is it doesn't acknowledge the bigger world, what's been going on outside. I do think there are spendthrifts. We all can point to some. Some might point to ourselves. Some might point to a brother-in-law or sister-in-law, or the guy down the street, who took out all his equity to buy a truck and toys and then lost the house to foreclosure. There are spendthrifts, but there are also a lot of hardworking families that have been getting squeezed. This is what's happened to household income just since the turn of the century. If I were to go back a little bit farther, what it would show you is that median incomes today, adjusted for inflation, are where they were in 1996. If I go back another couple decades, what you would see is that household incomes have only kept up because more women came into the workforce. So what you have is a situation where incomes are getting squeezed. If you only have a high school education and you're male, you're making about, on average, 30% less than your dad was at the same point in his life. So it's not your imagination, okay? There is a squeeze on it, and it's pretty serious. We didn't notice it because at the same time, for many, many years, there was an incredible boom in the availability of credit. When I first started writing about personal finance in 1992, there were credit cards back then in the ancient days, but you did have to have a decent credit rating or something going for you to get most credit cards. Credit card volume quintupled in the next decade and a half, excuse me. So lenders got a lot more comfortable, thanks to credit scoring actually, lending money to people they wouldn't have lent to before. And then we had the 2000s come around, and a lot of lenders discovered they could package up these mortgages and sell them off. And the riskier the loans, the more money they made. And guess what happened? Lending standards just fell through the floor. They made a comment that all you needed to get a mortgage in 2006 was being able to fog a mirror. And that was not too far from the truth. And sometimes not even that. Dead people did get mortgages in kind of a mortgage fraud thing. But so you see what happens during the recession. All of a sudden, the tap is shut off. Okay, people who had home equity lines. This started happening, I want to say, the end of 2006, beginning of 2007. I was starting to hear from people whose home equity lines were getting shut down. And remember, this is before the crisis. This is before Lehman Brothers bankruptcy, all that stuff. And I was calling up my mortgage sources around the country. Have you ever heard of this? Someone's home equity line actually being lowered? Wow, no. And then we started hearing more and more this was happening. When the crisis hit, the banks just pulled back sharply, strongly, in every way they could, canceling credit cards, canceling lines of credit, freezing lines of credit. They really stepped back harsh and fast. And that's why we're feeling the pain we are today. First the bubble, then the burst, and then the tight lending standards. Those have all contributed. One of the things that went along with all this easy credit were a lot of bankruptcies. And I've heard people talk about, what happened to American character, that bankruptcy used to have a stigma. And I used to feel that way too. I thought, A, anybody who had credit card debt was an idiot, and B, anybody who filed for bankruptcy was a deadbeat. Well, then I started doing my research, finally. I did a project for MSN about bankruptcy, and I asked people to tell me their stories. And back then, we had limits on how many emails, how much email traffic you could get at one time. The responses broke my email basket, okay? More than 500 people shared these long emails of their stories. And very few were what I expected. Very few were, yeah, I'm a shopaholic, I've got clothes in my closet that have the tags on. Very few. What I heard was, we had a baby and it went into NICU. And we didn't have insurance, or we didn't have enough insurance. I heard we were doing fine until my husband suddenly died of a heart attack. I heard I wasn't expecting to be divorced after 40 years of marriage. And I was left on my own. Those are the stories I heard. A lot of illness, a lot of medical bills. What I also heard was people struggling to catch up. And what they would do is they'd drain the equity in their houses. They would pull the money out of their 401ks, trying to pay these bills that were impossible to pay. So that turned my attitude around a bit about bankruptcy. And then I learned about the credit boom, and that there was a lot more credit out there. And one of the things that tells you something about how easy credit got is in the 90s, the fastest growing group of bankrupts were people over 65. These are people who were Depression era or shortly thereafter. They knew how to save, they knew how to be careful, and they were still getting slaughtered. So something was going on that was bigger than just buying too many lattes. All right, here we are now. Incomes are down. Net worths, you probably saw this when the statistic came out. Between 2007 and 2010, net worths, nationwide, median net worth dropped 40%. A lot of that was in home equity, but it was also our stocks, our bonds, our investments, just took it in the teeth. So what I'm trying to paint as a picture is it's more than just you. We all live in an economy. We all live under conditions that are beyond our control, a lot of them. The only thing we can control is how we respond. Oh, that's another little grim one. Look who's really taking it in the teeth. The biggest drops in income are young people, those kids that have, $50,000 of student loans and no job. And the folks right before retirement. They had the biggest hits in their income. Okay, so what do we do now? My three-part plan. Acknowledge, accept, then act. Acknowledge is just acknowledging what's happened to us, what the real world is like. That it's not about spending too much at the mall, necessarily. That can be a part of it, but there are bigger forces going on. The acceptance part is a more personal thing. I think to really change, you have to accept exactly where you are. What I hear from so many people is, I should be doing better. I should be better at this point in my life. I should have more. With this kind of income, I should have a different lifestyle. Or I hear, I've made so many mistakes. I don't think I can recover from this. Okay? I hear people in their 50s who don't have anything saved for retirement, or very, very little. And they're like, why even try? It's hopeless. I hear from kids in their 20s who the stock market crash is the only thing they can remember. They don't notice that it's doubled since the nadir in March 2009. They just know that it crashed and everybody panicked. So that's what they remember. So why try? And then there are people who just you know, think that they can't get ahead, that there's no point in it.